So, do you want to collect two kinds of data for your study? Maybe you want to interview participants, and at the same time, you want to collect or ask participants to complete a survey. What do you have to do? One thing that you might have to think about is SPA and TIP, as you can see here. So the SPA is an acronym of the best way of choosing an appropriate mixed method design for your study. TIP is an acronym for a way of communicating the mixed method approach that you have selected or the design that you have selected. So how do you choose and how do you communicate? That's a very important aspect of um, doing a mixed method study. Right. So as you can see here, there are 6 main types of mixed method design. We have sequential explanatory design, sequential exploratory design, sequential transformative design. All these three are sequential, as the name implies, because you are collecting one data at a time, analyze the data, and then you move on to the second phase, which is the second kind of data that you have to collect. So the first approach informs, or the findings of the first approach inform the second approach. That's why it starts with sequential, right? Sequential explanatory, right? For the explanatory, what you are doing is that you are using qualitative data to explain quantitative findings. That's why it's called explanatory. Exploratory, you are using quantitative data to explore the phenomenon that or explore what has already been found by the qualitative approach. That's why I call it sequential exploratory. And sequential transformative approach is you whenever a researcher want to use and take an advocacy role. This means that they are developing or doing research to directly address the needs of a specific group of people or the needs of participants. So they have an advocacy role. They have transformative. They want to transform the participants or people who are living conditions are not good, right? Or to improve the living condition. So you use sequential transformative design. And we have concurrent. Concurrent means that you are collecting qualitative data and quantitative data at the same time. So we have concurrent triangulation design. If you are collecting two kinds of data to address a single phenomenon, right? It's triangulation, collecting two kinds to address the same phenomenon. If you are collecting two kinds of data, but one kind is playing a dominant role, another one is playing a less dominant role, it's called concurrent nested design. So nested means that one approach is playing a less dominant role in addressing the phenomenon that you are studying, right? And we have concurrent transformative design. You have an advocacy role, right? And then the difference is from the sequential transformative design is that you are collecting qualitative and quantitative data at the same time. That's why it's called concurrent, right? So I have a PowerPoint that talks about all these things. I'll be happy to provide that for you. So in terms of choosing an appropriate mixed methods design for your study, you think about SPA. S, think about a sequence, right? So in case you decide, okay, I want to collect two kinds of data, and you ask yourself, what will be the sequence in terms of gathering the data? Do you want to start with one, analyze the data, and then go on to the second phase, right? So if you want to do that, you call it sequential because you collect one kind of data at a time, right? Analyze it, and then you allow the findings to inform the next stage or the next kind of data that you have to collect. Concurrent means that you're collecting qualitative and quantitative at the same time. So if you want to collect two kinds of data in your study, start with S, sequence. Second one is called priority. I hope I pronounce it well. I find it very difficult to pronounce this word. Well, I don't know why, but so the P is priority, right? So this means that which of the data, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, will be addressing the research question in terms of the weight, in terms of whether which one is dominant, right? So in terms of qualitative and quantitative data, do you want them to have equal weight in addressing the phenomenon, or you want one to be dominant and another where the second approach should be less dominant? So you find, in your case, you think about the phenomenon that you don't want to study. Which approach, or which kind of data will address huge part of the phenomenon, and which one will be providing a supportive role? If one will be providing a supportive role, then it's called unequal role. So your data or your method are playing on equal role, right? But if they are playing equal role, this means that both of them are addressing similar in terms of addressing the phenomenon is equal in terms of the weight, in terms of the emphasis in addressing the research question. Sometimes it's difficult to determine the weight or the which one is dominant, but it all depends on the eyes of the researcher. If I'm doing research, I can say that maybe quantitative dominant. Another person will say that, oh, qualitative is dominant. Sometimes it depends on how you argue concerning the approach that you're going to use to explain the phenomenon. But you just have to weigh the two and see which one is explaining more. If they are explaining equally, then they have equal role. The last one is advocacy role, right? Especially when you are using the transformative perspective, or you are looking at the phenomenon from the transformative perspective. This means that you have an advocacy role. So in your study, do you have an agenda of using the study to directly improve the lives of participants or a group of people? Then you have an advocacy role. If you are not, then you don't have an advocacy role or agenda. So these are the three things that you have to know, and this will help you to decide the best approach. In terms of deciding, I also developed a tool that you could use. It's free. You just have to click on it and it will ask you a few questions, and based on that you'll be able to decide which approach is the best for your study. So this is the design, the tool that I've developed. I have two versions. We have the shorter version and also the longer one. The shorter version is the newer version. I think it will be helpful for you to use, and that will help you to determine which approach will be. So the system will suggest a specific approach for you after asking you a few questions. So this table is just a summary of some of the characteristics of the mixed method design. So you can see here that for sequential explanatory mixed method design, you start with quantitative and end with qualitative. And the sequential, and it has an equal role, right? Most of the time, the quantitative is dominant and the qualitative is not. So that's why it has an equal role. And also, in terms of advocacy, Normally, when you use this approach, you don't have any advocacy role. So you can go through this, especially when you use this the tool, and then you find out that okay, concurrent transformative mixed method design is appropriate. You can just this is just a summary table for you to know some of the characteristics. So after you have decided what next, communication, you have to communicate it well to your audience. So if you want to use a specific approach, mixed method approach, you have to really define what the approach is all about, right, to your audience. Maybe they don't know much information. You have to cite a source. And I think I've provided some references to help you to to read further concerning the mixed method approach. But what people will want to know is the timing, the sequence. What is the sequence of gathering the data? Is it concurrent, collecting qualitative and quantitative at the same time, or sequential? People want to know that. Also, theoretical lens, that's the T, right? What is the philosophical paradigm that informs your selected mixed method design? So let's say if you choose transformative philosophical paradigm or constructivism, right? So and you are using a qualitative study. No, and you are a qualitative approach is the dominant approach, right, for your study. Then you have to be explicit. You have to explain to people, or you have to talk about the philosophical paradigm that informs your design, right? So you are, if quantitative is dominant, you don't have to be explicit concerning your philosophical paradigm. And also, if you want to get more information, I have a PowerPoint that talks about all these things. I can show you. And we have integration. Integration is more of how are you going to combine the two methodologies or two data that you are collecting? Where are you going to mix, right? How do you plan to integrate the qualitative and quantitative method data or results? At what stage do you plan to mix or connect both methods, data or results, right? So you can either mix them based on the approach that you have chosen. You can mix them during the data analysis stage or data interpretation, the findings interpretation stage phase. The next one is the priority, right? And this one, I think I already talked about that. People want to know what role is given to qualitative method data or results or quantitative method. What role in the study? What role is the qualitative method playing? What role is the quantitative method playing? Right. And then are they playing equal role? Are they playing on equal role? If they are not playing, if they are playing on equal role, which one is dominant? So people want to know that. And lastly, the purpose. Why do you plan to use both methods in the study? Which aspect of the phenomenon would each method address? Right. So think about a study that you have identified a phenomenon that you want to study, and you plan to collect qualitative data and quantitative data. Right. So you are using two methodologies because one methodology cannot address everything. Every methodology have strengths and weaknesses. So there's a need for you to collect both data to help the offset the weaknesses of the other approach, right? So this is the stage where you're going to give a rationale. Why do you think you should combine both data or both approaches in a study, right? So there are some concepts that you have to learn. One of them is triangulation rationale. So this means that normally if you are collecting data, both data, or using both method to help you address a single phenomenon right, then there's more likely for you to use triangulation rationale. Like there's the same phenomenon like mental health stigma, and you want to collect data, interview participants to understand mental health stigma. At the same time, use an instrument to maybe measure mental health stigma, right? You can see that for this approach, you are using triangulation approach because both data are addressing the same aspect of the phenomenon. If both data are addressing different aspect of the phenomenon, then one example is, let's say you are focusing on mental health issues and health-seeking behavior, and the qualitative part is learning you are focused using qualitative to better understand the mental health issues. And the second, the quantitative part, you want to measure the health-seeking behavior of participants. So you see that the two methodologies are addressing different parts, right? So, but at the end of the day, can complement each other to better understand overall phenomenon, right? So in this case, you can either use complementary rationale to argue the reason why you think mixed method will be the appropriate. Development, most of the time you use when you're doing sequential, using any of the sequential approaches or design. So to learn more about these rationale, I think if you can refer to my PowerPoint, I think that would be um, great. So this is a brief information for you. And as you can see here, this is just a summary. You know, whenever you want to communicate your design, mixed method design, think about tip, right? Think about tip. Um, Theoretical lens, timing, integration, purpose, and priority, right? Priority. And as you can see here, there are different types under that. You'll learn more by clicking on this one to take you to the PowerPoint that talks about all the mixed method designs and characteristics. So this is what I have for you. This is just a table to talk about the characteristics, especially when you choose a specific design, you can see what is required and how you want to communicate that information. Thank you for your time. If you want more information, you can email me or you can follow me on Twitter. Also, it would be great if you can share or subscribe to this presentation on my YouTube channel. I think thank you for your time. Bye.